My fellow sheep, election season is upon us. Are you one of the 12% of Americans who still approves of our government? Then we need your help to force the other 88% into compliance. Our democracy depends on it. We're an organization called Citizens Against Too Much Unfettered Freedom, or CATMUF. CATMUF is a bipartisan flock of sheep whose goal is expanding government until nothing else remains. Because the government is here to help you. How can you help CATMUF help you? By only voting for candidates dedicated to expanding government. It's easy. You don't need to study the issues. No matter what a politician says when running for office, they're all dedicated to expanding government. And make sure you tell all your friends and family to vote for more government. Here at CATMUF, we don't care if you vote Democrat or Republican, as long as you vote for candidates committed to growing our federal family. CATMUF, because folks just aren't smart enough to handle real freedom.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Abolitionist Abstractions. As always, we're covered by a BIPCOT no government license. This allows reuse by anyone except governments and the agents thereof. You can find out more information about this at bipcot.org. So I am back, and I think I tipped people off a little bit last week, but if I didn't, I have a special guest with me this week. A lot of my listeners may know him. He runs a little podcast called Peaceful Anarchism, and once upon a time, he used to be my co-host on the Seeds of Liberty, Mr. Danilo Cuellar. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, Jeremy. Glad to be back with you. But yeah, it's I've been busy with my podcast and, with my kids, homeschooling them and trying to stay active online and trying to post as much as possible. And it gets a little difficult, but, one does what one can. So.
Yes. Well, the fact that you're working on the unschool, homeschool thing with your kids is actually part of the reason that you're here, other than the fact that I haven't talked to you in forever in a long form setting. So, I wanted to sit you down and actually have a chat. But yeah, we were gonna talk some parenting stuff tonight. And before we get into that, I do want to mention for those listening, I forgot to mention this during last week's episode. Last week was brought to you by Discord, which is why we had some issues with my guest. This week, if there's any problems, we're going to blame it on Skype because, well, Danilo's back, and we've always had issues with Danilo in audio. So we ended up having to use Skype tonight because Dave set up our Discord server. I don't know what the hell he did. Something's going on there that we couldn't actually connect. So if there's any issues, it sounded all right beforehand, but just in case, I want to get that out of the way. Anyway, so you're here. We're going to talk some parenting stuff, I guess. And I don't know. I think this all started. I mean, obviously, you talk or have at least in the past talked a lot about these things about peaceful parenting and stuff like that. We did a bunch of Seeds episodes on it back in the day. I know you talk about it a fair amount on your show and in your writings. And then, of course, you are doing the homeschooling, unschooling thing with your children currently, which I am trying to do too. But I think we started talking about doing this episode when I first presented you the piece that I wrote on the parenting piece that I wrote that I finally published a couple of weeks ago because you were one of the only people that had read it before I actually put it out there. And so after going through that and helping me tighten that up and stuff, we were talking about it. I was like, yeah, we should talk parenting because I put that out there. It didn't get as much traction on Steam as I was hoping it would, but now it's out there on the Seeds of Liberty site and it's starting to get more views. So hopefully there'll be more of a discussion about it. But in general,
you mean the Contradictions Abound article, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my Contradictions Abound article, which I will again attach in the show links, the show notes rather. So anybody who hasn't read that can check it out. But yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think you and I share a kind of similar view on the whole parent, at least on when it comes to the schooling aspect of parenting, because I'm trying to do the same thing with my girls. although we've been all over the place because, you know, we're trying to move and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to get set up with groups and be like, oh yeah, we're going to hang out for like a week or two and then we're going to leave.
Yeah.
So we're hoping once we relocate. But so how, I know you are one of the few, at least that I know of, unschooling, homeschooling dads, you know, which is something I'm trying to get myself into. And hopefully that will finally come to fruition when we move out of here, because the plan is for Jen to get a job and me to get to stay home for a while. So what's that like now? You've been doing that for a couple of years now. How's that going?
Yeah, I am certainly enjoying it. It's now since June of 2014 that I've been doing it. So now about
wow, almost 4 years now.
Almost 4 years, yeah. I mean, I do, you know, earn some income on the side with doing some acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and recently I've been acquiring some chess students, which is pretty cool and very convenient because I can teach chess online, and so, you know, they pay me PayPal, and and it's very convenient. You know, I just take an hour, teach a chess lesson for an hour, and make some money. So I'm very happy with that. So I'm trying to really push to do more of that because, with the acupuncture, I got to travel to go to their house, and it's a big ordeal. The herbs is a little bit different. I can call them and talk to them over the phone. So yeah, I can do that. But yeah, the kids doing pretty good. My daughter is in gymnastics, and she's really loving it. She's actually quite advanced for her age. She is. They noticed that she is very has strong like upper body strength, and so they moved her into a smaller group of more advanced kids, and so she gets like more personalized attention, and she's like preparing for like not a competition, like a performance, I guess, in June. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and she does get a lot of comments from people saying, like, when they can see what she can do, like she can do the monkey bars. Like she's tiny. She's 5 years old. She's tiny I'd say for a 5-year-old, but she's strong, and she can do the monkey bars by herself. She's been able to do that, I don't know, for a few months or a year. And like everybody's always blown away when they see her do all the monkey bars, like a whole row of them by herself. And yeah. She's strong. That's pretty cool. So yeah, she's definitely into that and the ballet. She took a little break, but now she's back in the ballet and tap. So she loves both of those. And then my son, he's been getting very much into chess. I've gotten much more into chess lately. Since last summer, I started a chess club locally in Nyack, around here in Rockland County, and I love it. You know, it's great. And we have a time 5:30 to 7 where it's just for kids. And so my kids can play other kids. And so that's really, we get like 10 to 15 kids. So it's really a good amount of kids. And then from 7 to 9, it's for adults. And so, yeah, so that's really awesome. Every week that he can meet other kids and play chess. And then we have, he has an account on this website, chesskid.com. And so he has an account there, watches like, animated, fun tutorial videos about chess, and they make it really interesting and engaging. And then he can play other kids online, which is pretty cool. So he enjoys that a lot. And I teach him as well. So, and this is the other thing regarding homeschool, or regarding more unschooling, is that it's, people think, oh, I'm a chess player, so I must be teaching my kids chess. But it didn't really happen that way. I didn't intend on teaching him, like sitting him down and saying, you're going to learn chess right now. No, it wasn't like that. It's just that everywhere that we went, like to a playground or a park, I would always bring my chess set, my chess book, and I open it up and just, go through a game and analyze stuff. And my kids would just see me all the time, just playing chess all the time, and they just picked up the game. The rules is pretty simple, and they love it now. And they play each other, and they play other kids at the park. When the weather's nice and warm. So it's a great way to meet other kids. So it's not like I, forced him to learn chess. This is what you're going to learn. You're going to study the classics and learn the grandmasters and learn all the world champions by name. No,
Oh yeah, sure. Like the parents who want to make sure their children are cultured and force them to do, like, say, something like learn the violin at a very young age, and even if it's something the child may have wanted to do at a certain point and may have had interest in, when it's forced upon them like that, more often than not, it ends up being a turnoff for the child, and that because they see it as work rather as something they want to do. But that, I mean, it's interesting because I was listening to you say that, and I remember years ago you talking about the fact that, because two of your great loves are chess and the piano. And you had always said that those are two things you would love your kids to get into, but you never wanted, you would say, I mean, like I said, 3-4 years ago when we used to talk about this, you would say that you never wanted to force them into it. But up until, the last couple of times I spoke to you, I guess, it hadn't really clicked with either of them. And I remember you kind of like, not like being upset, but kind of like being a little bummed, be like, I wish they would, but all you did was continue to persevere, not by pushing them, but just doing it in front of them, so that they ended up coming to you. And the other thing that I picked up on what you were saying was, it was very interesting. Not necessarily to me, but I think to anybody who would listen to this and who has a mindset of like the traditional type schooling and even maybe homeschooling, but like the very traditional type homeschooling. When you're asked the question, oh, so what are you up to in the homeschooling, unschooling game with your kids? Instead of going to like what they're learning as far as subjects and how they're doing in math, you immediately went to the classes that they're taking, and not only that they're taking, that they've chosen to take and learn about themselves, which I, of course, find awesome, because that's the type of, I would like to think that'd be my answer too if somebody posed that to me, because we don't really, here at my house, we don't really focus necessarily on subjects per se. I mean, Jen works with them a lot and has been with their writing and their letters and their numbers and stuff like that, but we also didn't push them, and we got a lot of nasty looks and comments from family members and so-called friends and whatever about the fact that when they were 5 and they weren't even reading yet or even trying to read yet, and it's like, well, because they don't want to. Like it's not like we've hidden the ability to read from them, and we've said no, we're not going to teach you. Ha ha ha. We are like the Catholic Church back in the day, and only the special people can read the documents, and you will never get. No, it was nothing like that. It was we tried. We said, hey, would you like to learn how to spell these words so you can read these books? And no, we'd rather let you read the books to us. Okay, so we didn't push them. And, when a couple times we got frustrated with it, we thought we should be pushing a little bit more. And then we decided against it. And then finally, like a couple of months later, one of our daughters, Harley, came to us and was kind of went to Jen and was like, I want to learn my words, all on her own. And it was like, all right, great. Now we'll work on that, and when they want to work on it, we work on it, and we try, throw it out there. But I love that attitude, the fact that that's the response, like I said, instead of going right to, oh yes, they've got their word, their letters down, and they could do basic math. No. Your son's out there playing chess and your daughter's out there doing gymnastics, and those are the first two things you mentioned. I think that's so great. I think that's one of the things that originally drew me to the unschooling world, was that freedom that you're giving the kids. And really, that's why, I think you agree with me too, I'm a big fan of the term self-directed learning.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and there's an immense difference between my son and my daughter in terms of the reading. My son, he's much less. I guess maybe he just doesn't care. He doesn't care if he doesn't know how to read. I mean, actually, this is not just about reading. It's about so many things. My daughter is just so focused, and when she wants to when she wants to learn something, she learns it very quick. Like, she learned to write her name before my son learns to write her name, and he's 2 years older. Isn't amazing? And so she is
having hung out with your kids, I could totally see that.
I know, and like she's 5, right? She can cut up an apple or a pear herself, like into little pieces. And my son doesn't do that at all. And he wants, can I have some of you? She's so independent. It's amazing. She just had her first sleepover last week, and she loved it. And she's 5. I'm like, wait a minute, is this the age that it starts? No fear. My son's 7. Nope, not even considering it. He's like, nope, sorry, I will not do that. But my son has recently gained a much a much greater incentive to want to learn how to read because of Minecraft. I don't know. Are you kids into Minecraft at all?
No, they don't, I tried to get them into like just video games in general like a year or two ago because I still have a PlayStation 3, and I tried to find some like kid-centered games for them to play and stuff like that. And they liked the pretty colors and they liked what was going on the screen, but they really had no interest. Like they kind of got into it because I also have the PlayStation Move, which is kind of like the Nintendo Wii, so you can play. You hold it, you have to hold sticks in your hand, you could play and stuff. They got into that for a little while, but then they're like, we're done with that. But I recently dug out Jen found an old video game system that somebody had given us years ago that was still sitting in the garage, and we plugged that in, and they thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But no, they haven't gotten as far as Minecraft yet.
Yeah, so my son, he wasn't really, well, I guess he was a little, I have this Sega Genesis, this old, classic Sega Genesis collection game thing, and he loves that, especially Sonic. He's been playing that, but ever since he found Minecraft, he's completely abandoned that. Now he's all about Minecraft and learning about it, and he watches YouTube videos about it, tutorials. He loves watching other people play. He actually wants to start his own YouTube channel, Minecraft playing YouTube channel. It's kind of funny.
That's awesome.
Because you find so many people doing it, so what's awesome about Minecraft is that, first of all, it's creative and it's imaginative. He builds things, and if he doesn't know how to build it, he searches on YouTube how to do it and learns how to build it and then does it. And in the beginning, he was kind of scared to play with other people. He didn't want to play. He just wanted to play by himself, not online. But recently, maybe like a week ago, he gained the courage to want to play with other people, and now he's playing with other people, and he loves it. It's kind of funny because he would tell me, he's like, Daddy, somebody just killed me, and it sucks because and it sucks because he would like get you dig up stuff, you get iron and you get diamonds, then you can make a diamond sword, and that's like the strongest sword. But the problem is when somebody kills you, they can get your stuff.
Oh.
And so he's like, I had a diamond sword and he killed me. So it's kind of funny. But oh yeah, so the reason that reading is now very much incentivizing him is because of Minecraft, because he sees people talking in the chat box. He keeps coming up to me. What does it say? What does it say?
What are they saying to each other, Dad?
Yeah. What does it say? And so he's really wants to learn, and I'm like, I think that's such a great fire in the behind that he's gonna learn so much quicker because he wants to figure out what are these people saying. And when he's like they open chests and they there's they have little items in the chest and you can acquire them. He doesn't know what each of them says, so he keeps asking me about that. So all these things is a great incentive for just him to want to learn how to read, and so yeah, he is. And my wife loves that because for her, that was one of the big things that she was kind of irritated by, was that his indifference in terms of reading. He just didn't care about reading, but now he has a reason to want to read, and so it's great. So I think it served a wonderful purpose, Minecraft.
Well, no, and you're actually not the first person I've heard that from. Like, actually, the explanation you gave about what you kind of do with it is probably more than I knew about Minecraft. Like, I've heard the name a bunch of times, and I know people talk about it, but I've never even seen a screen of it being played. I've never paid attention that much. But I've actually listened to a lot of the people who are trying to run their own little private unschooling homeschooling groups across the country, especially when they've been on the School Sucks project with Brett Van Nott.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a lot of people on recently, especially during his tour across the country, where he stopped at a bunch of these different little schools and stuff. And Minecraft comes up a lot of times. I hear it mentioned as something that the kids, from ages 4 till 12, whatever, all getting into, and kind of type of this, some of the similar things. Like, it actually drives them to want to know more about other things. And again, you don't have to push them at all. And I love that type of approach too, because that's the same type of thing that we did originally. Like I said, when we started out, we would try to bring the information to the girls, and if they kind of pushed back really hard, then we let it go. But for instance, with numbers, I used to do it, and Jen still does it too. When they come out shopping with us all the time, like we do math, like we learn numbers and math by talking about stuff in the aisles, like how much everything costs, and then when we go up to pay, like how much we're giving and how much change receive. And it's all those basic little everyday interactions that most people take for granted, but they don't realize that they're just a learning experience. And especially if it ends up, because when it came to stuff like that, then when they started to get old enough that they started to understand that we couldn't just hand them every toy they wanted, like it costs money. Like they're starting to understand that concept. So now it was like, now they wanted to know even more about these numbers because they wanted to know how much things cost and how much they have in their little piggy bank, and if they can buy it themselves or if they have to wait and type of stuff. And for the reading thing, that was kind of, like I said, at one point Jen especially was getting a little frustrated because she was hoping they would kind of pick up on it but weren't, and I think she was wondering whether we should abandon this approach sooner than I was. And it was the other interesting thing about that too is a lot of people expected me to be upset, like family members and stuff expected me to be upset that my kids weren't reading by a certain point, because I was considered like, the family prodigy or whatever. And my parents, who were both public school teachers, to this day still cannot explain how or why this happened. But I started reading at an extremely advanced level on my own without them showing me anything by the age of 4. So by the time I hit kindergarten, I was leagues ahead of my friends.
Wow.
And like and my parents to this day, like we've talked about, like my dad and I talked about this sometime last year, and he's like, I still don't understand it. He's like, I have no idea how you did it. He's like, we weren't teaching you, we weren't showing you. He's like, you just decided you wanted to learn to read and you figured it out on your own. But I wasn't upset because I took with my kids, because I was like, they're not ready yet. I don't remember myself being 4 and teaching me these things, but I can only assume that very much like my children or like your son, as you were describing, had something that was like, oh my God, I need to be able to do this because I want to do this. And a lot of times it's as simple as that. All of a sudden, I don't care about reading. Ooh, there's this cool thing I could do. Oh, I need to be able to read. Okay. With my daughters, the couple of times that I did try to give them like help and try to like give them things that they would be interested in. They both love superheroes. They're huge into the Marvel and DC, but more specifically Marvel. They actually now they're both watching them, but for a while, my one daughter was actually petrified of them, and the other one wanted to watch all like the Avengers movies with me.
The movies?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
She even insisted on watching Logan with me, which I know some people will probably hear this and go, oh my God, you let your 6-year-old watch Logan, which is rated R? Yeah, okay. And she requested it. Wolverine is her favorite character. And even though I explained to her ahead of time, listen, I'm going to have to break this to you. If you want to watch this movie, both Logan and Professor X die. You need to be ready for that. Like, you love these guys. They're your favorites. You talk about like, you have to be able to be prepared for this. I want you to be like, she insisted, and she's been a trooper ever since. She's still one of her favorite movies. She has to watch it. She has to watch it every month or so. But because of that love for superheroes, I had picked up a bunch of different superhero books that I had found on Amazon, and one of them was like the A to Z Marvel characters, and the other one was the A to Z DC characters. And one day I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's basically at least one of these guys for every one of these letters. So I started presenting them to him as that. I'm like, oh, look at this. So-and-so's name starts with A, and all of a sudden they were interested. Yeah. And that's actually what pushed them over the edge to wanting to actually know all their letters beyond just saying the alphabet. Because, by that point they could repeat it, but they really weren't making the connections. So yeah, man, I love that stuff. I think, like I said, I think a lot of people take that for granted. They don't recognize that these kids would kind of figure these things out of necessity, even if they needed help, that they would at least come to a point where it's like, hey, I need to do this. Mom, dad, whoever, can you help me? Like, I want to learn.
Yeah, it's to me it's an illustration about why central planning fails, because the idea is that the central planner looks at the child or looks at the child as the same way a central planner looks at the citizen or a person and says, I know what's best for you. You need to do this, and I need to tax you here so that I change your behavior so you don't do that and you do this more. And the reality is, no, you don't know what people want or need or desire. And all we can do is, maybe expose them, present new ideas. But that's about it. You can't force people. The moment you try to force people, they're just going to push back and you're going to fail. Especially if you're trying to force them to love or enjoy something that you love most of the time that ends up in them hating it. So it completely backfires. But yeah, that's kind of interesting that your kids watch is it both your kids? You say both your kids watch it, right?
Now they do, yes. It all started there. I guess they were about 4, and one of them woke up early. I think it was my Harley, who I call my mini me a lot of the times. I think it was her, or no, actually, I think it was her sister Emma, who actually came into the room one morning. This is back when Jen and the girls were living, separately after we had originally split up. And they were spending the weekend with me, and I had been watching the first Avengers the night before. I went to, I like to watch movies or whatever, like stuff that I've seen a billion times, so I don't actually have to watch it. I can just listen to it. But that's usually how I put myself to sleep at night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just something I've always done. It usually doesn't work out as well when I have when I'm with somebody and I'm sharing a bed, because they usually don't appreciate it the same way I do. But when I sleep alone, I almost always have the TV on. It's just something I've always done. But so anyway, that night I had been watching the Avengers. So when she came in the morning, she saw the DVD cover sitting on my bed, and she's like, "What's this, Daddy?" And it was still up on the screen, frozen at like wherever it had paused in the movie. And because there was the sleep timer was on, I didn't realize it, but it just like froze it there. And she was like, "Oh, what's this?" Because she had seen, I think, as a cartoon of the Avengers or something, and like thought they were kind of cool and stuff like that. And I actually already introduced them to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from back when we were growing up, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And they thought they were great. So she had it in her head, "Oh, more superheroes." So I'm like, I was thinking about it at the time, and I'm like, I'm probably going to, I thought to myself, I'm probably going to get hell from this, including from their mother. But all right, I'm like, I'll put it on for you if you want to watch it. And she was just like awestruck. Wow. Oh my God, this is amazing. Then when her sister watched up, yeah. I saw this with Daddy. You have to watch it. We have to watch this. So we sat and watched it, and they fell in love with like the characters and miming out the different fight scenes and stuff. Yeah. And and this was also around the time I was teaching them about self-defense, because unfortunately they would go after each other a lot. And I was like, listen, I can't physically stop. Like I can't. I'm trying to be a peaceful parent, so I'm not going to hit you for trying to hit your sister. But the only thing I could do is teach your sister to hit back.
Yeah.
Right. So it was all around this time. And then after watching it a couple of times, something got triggered with my one daughter where she's watched the scene in the Avengers the first time that Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk, and it freaked her out. And after that, she couldn't watch it anymore. She still loved talking about it. She still loved playing the imaginary game with her sister, but she could never watch any of these movies. So that kind of became a thing with my one daughter and I, Harley, that was our thing. That was our daddy-daughter time. Whenever she wanted to stay with me an extra night, when it was just me and her, or whether she just wanted to hang out with me for a day or whatever, that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to watch all these movies. So now at this point, she's seen most of the Marvel Universe, I think. Wow. The whole family, we actually sat down and watched the latest Thor Ragnarok the other day, which they thought was the greatest thing ever, because they love Thor and the Hulk. And they just think it's the great, and of course now Valkyrie is their new favorite person, because they're like, oh, another cool woman, another cool girl who kicks butt and does all these things, because up until then, actually, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, played by Scarlett Johansson in the Avengers series, yeah. That's Harley. Like Harley, she wants to dress up as her all the time. She wants to be her. She is the Black Widow most of the time. But yeah, man, they love it, and I'm like, and Jen's on board with it too, and other than they get a little crazy sometimes with their acting out of it, which we've had to talk to them about, and we've said, okay, maybe we need to scale back on this, but we try to keep the lines of communication open about it with them. We're not just, we're taking this away from you. It's like, okay, maybe we should think about watching something else when it's time to watch a movie, because we don't watch movies all day long or something. It's like once a week or something, we'll throw one of these on, and it's like, maybe we need to think about maybe we'll watch a cartoon this time, maybe just if you're getting a little nutty, but we talk about it. And yeah,
that's funny. That's actually the first time I've heard someone, a parent, say, yeah, we got to push the cartoons because they want to watch violent or a superhero. Like, you don't hear that too much. Like with my kids, they definitely prefer cartoons. The computer animation as well as just regular cartoons. My son is much more sensitive. And I guess my daughter, they kind of both are. Like, if one doesn't want to watch something, probably the other one doesn't want to watch either. Like, and I try to get them like look at Kong Skull Island. Wow, let's watch that. So cool. No, they don't want. It looks scary. But let's watch the I don't know, whatever. Oh yeah, Logan is on Netflix. No, they don't want to watch that. Like, oh, I haven't been able to watch an adult movie in such a long time because every time we watch a movie on a weekend with the kids, it's always a cartoon. Yeah, it's tough.
That's funny.
And yeah, but yeah, I like superhero movies. And I think a lot of people. Some people that I tell that to, they get surprised, like, "What? Really?" And then they say, "What?" They say, "I don't like superhero movies because it's so mindless and it, it's just violence and all that
fun."
stuff." And I tell them that one of the reasons that I do is because I'm in my head all the time with chess and with my writing and with the podcasting. It's all intellectual stuff, and sometimes you just want to turn it off. As in the words of my brother, my ex brother-in-law, he's like, hey, sometimes I just want to see shit blow up. That's it.
Exactly.
See people fighting and see stuff blow up. But I think it's cool. I think it's just relaxing. It's just like, oh yeah, you don't have to think about anything. Although I guess with the recent Black Panther thing, that's kind of they're trying to touch on some political issues with that. It's not just apparently it's not just a superhero movie. It's a movement.
Oh no, I still haven't seen that one yet. I allegedly I may have been able to obtain a copy of it, but it wasn't the greatest. So I didn't do anything illegal or anything. Of course, I would only download them from the proper sources. But
right,
it's not quite ready for prime time yet. And I've talked about this before on the show. I have such an issue with movie theaters in general. Although we're gonna take the girls at some point soon to their first in theater movie rather.
Yeah.
Although I'm still kind of skeptical about that because they do like to get up and walk around so much, and still they're not sitting through a whole thing. But yeah, but like I said, I was gonna say, I mean, the whole thing with the superhero movies, I'm the same way as you. Like I do a bunch of other stuff, and I watch other things too that some people would probably consider not very intellectual, but I don't care. But I appreciate even the Marvel movies because I know there's a lot of people out there that think they're a lot of them are just garbage or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I know. But I appreciate them for what they are, for exactly how you describe them. They're fun. You don't have to think, and I get to see the characters from my childhood that I read the actual comics of. I get to see them come to life, and I like the actors they picked for the most part to play most of these guys. I think they're all great, so it's enjoyable for me. Who cares? And like the fact that my kids love it is even better.
Yeah, I think I would be more disposed to wanting to watch the Black Panther movie if it wasn't for all this like political debate around it. To me, that just detracts from like the whole fictional nature of what a superhero movie is. It's supposed to be fiction. It's not politics. It's not a movement. It's just fiction. Yeah, it's just it's that. It's the same thing with Wonder Woman. I think I would have been more inclined to want to watch that, whereas now I'm less inclined because of like feminists, like clutching it so tightly as being such a wonderful portrayal of a feminine strong character, as if we have never had strong feminine characters in movies in the past, right?
Oh yeah, both of those are great examples of that because I mean, how many memes were made of both of them where it was like we have the first women super strong, and like there would be memes with like Sigourney Weaver and Aliens and all these other women throughout history that have played leading roles. Is like what the fuck?
Yeah, Sarah Connor.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with the Black Panther. It's like we have a black superhero, and there's always the picture of Wesley Snipes. Like what the fuck, man? Like what about Blade? I did 3 fucking movies. It wasn't just like a one-hit wonder. I did 3 of these fucking things.
Yeah,
but see, I don't know enough because I haven't seen it, and I rarely haven't read. Like I've read like some headlines and stuff, but I know with Wonder Woman, at least I didn't. I've never sat and watched the entire thing, but Jen and the girls have. Like that was another one they wanted to watch because they love Wonder Woman. Of course, they actually like the old school Linda Carter TV show. That was one of the first superhero things I got them to watch, which that was back in what, like the 70s, 80s, right? I think it started before I was born. I might have. And, but that was, the one portrayal of Wonder Woman for the longest time. But my kids watched that. Of course, I think I might have mentioned it on the show. I know I've talked about it in the Lolberts with Jim Jesus, but they actually love the old Batman 66 series too. the Adam West Batman. Like those were two of the first things they got into, and that's where their love of because that's what I tried to show them first, like these campy ones that are not violent, not gory, because they were on network TV, and they fell in love with them, and they wanted to know more and more. Like I said, my one daughter, she's obsessed with the Black Widow, and for the longest before that, it was Harley Quinn. That was her. That was her thing. She loves Harley Quinn. from Batman, but yeah, like I said, they're into it. I don't care. They dig it, and makes.
Yeah, what you said was interesting. I didn't even think about it. That when people ask me like, "How's the homeschooling going?" I immediately go to what they're interested in. I never say, "Well, he can multiply 5 times 5. he can read a few sentences from a book." No, I never say that. I immediately go to what they're passionate about, what they're interested in, because to me that's the most important thing. We do math on Khan Academy, which is awesome, and actually that's another thing that's kind of interesting. I noticed is that my sister, my daughter, and my son, they differ so much with math. Like my daughter's so much more physical in terms of the gymnastics and ballet and singing and moving her body. She's very much a physical person. And physically, she loves physically moving, using her body. Whereas my son, definitely much more intellectual, mental with the the Minecraft, and he's definitely more into math. He gets it. He gets the math much more than my daughter does. And he can add and subtract. I think up to triple digit numbers, just in the car just today. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm paper, but yeah, he's really good at it. And then just in the car, I was teaching him I was helping him do 60 minus 30 because we were talking about time. I was like, well, if I come home at 7:30, how much time before I have to do my podcast? Oh, okay. We figured that out, and he got it, and that was just in our head, and so he's learning time, how to tell time on a clock, a face clock. So yeah, he definitely gets the math, and it reminds me of a video by Julia Taransky, Brave the World. I don't know if you saw it. It's she called it the 50 differences between men and women. Have you seen that video?
I actually, for some, she's one of those people who disappeared from my feed a long time ago because I'm guessing because of the algorithms, and I kind of forgot she was out there, so I haven't seen anything from her in quite a while, actually.
Yeah, I follow her on YouTube mainly, and I saw that. It's excellent. I talk about it so much because I'm surrounded by leftists, feminists. I mean, feminist
straight up socialist, and people who think the communist system they came from was actually kind of good because when people say, "Oh, I'm surrounded by Democrats," no, this is like what Danilo is surrounded by is a whole different level.
Yeah. It's weird when you talk to people that come from a communist country and they endorse it, and then you mention, well, what about the concentration camp? What about the gulags? What about the millions of people who died? They're like, that's propaganda. That's American capitalist propaganda. It never happened. What do you say to that? I mean, how do you even respond to that? I can't even say anything. The level of I don't know what other word or else indoctrination. The level of indoctrination is so deep you can't even uproot. They think Stalin is the savior. He unified Europe. It was a wonderful thing. In the same way that Genghis Khan unified Central and Eastern Asia. By the way, millions of people died. Yeah, right. But he unified everybody.
And he raped so many women that he's I think his DNA is found in some ridiculous thing like 5% of the human population, which is just absurd. Coming from one man. Maybe it's 11%. I don't know, something in that in one area over there. It's like 70% of the people all have genetic ties. So, yeah, great guys. They did a lot,
Yeah. So it's very difficult to talk to people like that. So usually with that particular person, I don't really broach the topic of capitalism versus socialism and communism because it just engenders bad feeling. But yeah, so I am surrounded by those kinds of people. So yeah, it's difficult, but I manage it somehow. I try to stay civil. I say my piece, and people
Now,
most of the time,
did
try to rip
they
me apart.
because of most of the people so closely tied into your family structure there have these, well, let's say socialist leanings, to be nice about it. Do they still give you guys a problem about wanting to do things outside of the school structure? Because I know most of the time, like I said, my dad actually was cool with it. My mom, public school teacher, thought we were crazy at first. And Jen's family thinks we're insane. Do you still get that from them, or are they kind of like at the point? Well, it's Marcus is succeeding well enough at this point to, I guess we might have been a little wrong, or do they still harass you about the fact that they're not in school?
Yeah. We moved farther away from them a year ago, and so that's one of the reasons why we're hearing less from them. But recently, my mother, both of them, both my parents have been, gently urging us, like, we found a good, private school near you guys, and it's just, $20,000 a year.
Just.
And all this stuff. And so, yeah, it's a little bit. Oh, yeah, there's also something interesting, which is when my wife is like tired or complains of stress at work, then my mother comes in. You see, if they went to school, and then she would be less stressed out. So it's always like, or if she's very sick, she had the flu pretty bad recently. You see, that's because you're homeschooling. Everything, all the difficulties in our lives now. You see, if you weren't homeschooling, you wouldn't have had.
Oh wow! So there's yeah. Well, distance doesn't stop that, obviously, because that's what I meant, though. I didn't mean like they were harassing you in the house, but they're still like harassing you through phone calls and messages. I guess. Yeah, they haven't let it go, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. They're slowly realizing that, I've had to say, no, we're going to stay on the course. We're going to continue doing what we're doing because we think it's working, and I don't understand how people can feel, there's so many things like, you got the school shootings, and then like so many things that you always hear about, kids getting arrested, for drawing a gun or eating a Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun. The most ridiculous things, and I don't understand how people can't realize how disempowered, how just insignificant they consider the children to be. And also, the way I look at it, people who send their kids to school is kind of a message saying, here, you raise the kid. I had the kid, but you raise the kid, because that's essentially what's happening. When you give your kid over to somebody, and it doesn't even have to be government school. It can be even private school. It's kind of the same way I look at it. If you're not with your kid, you don't have to be with your kid constantly until they're a teenager, but especially in the early formative years, it's so vital that you're with them and developing that strong bond. Because that I think is going to be, that's going to do wonders to ensuring a strong, self-reliant, independent individual. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. That's why with that piece that I wrote that was, I guess kind of lengthy. It was like 2,800 words or something. But that's why I spent the one section I spent the most amount of time on. For all the different issues I saw with a lot of the way a lot of people raise their kids. I guess not to sugarcoat it, but was the schooling aspect. And you said, you were saying you kind of dumbfounded about how people can not see this. Well, the reality is, unfortunately, they can't see it because they were put through the process and they don't recognize what happened to them. They still don't view what happened to them as indoctrination. So sure, why wouldn't we do? A lot of people, not even the not cynical ones. Some people say this, very earnestly, and they believe it. It's like, well, I survived it. Why wouldn't my kids? And you hear things like silly things, just like in a lot of things, like, oh, it helps build character, and of course, there's all the horrible straw men, like socialization and all this stuff. But yeah, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't recognize that. And the other thing you mentioned about people just kind of pawning the raising of their children off on the government or the government schools. Well, yeah, there is a certain section of the population that totally views it as essentially a daycare for their kids. Like, okay, this is what I have to do. Most people, I think, don't think they have a choice. They look at this, their rather narrow view of the world from the indoctrination they received and never broke themselves out of is, well, we have to, whether it's a single parent family or full, the nuclear family, whatever kind of, whatever it is, like, okay, we have to work to be able to afford all this stuff, and everybody has to work. We just don't have the time. We can't afford it. Whether they are complaining about taxes or whatever it is, like everything's too high. We have to work. Otherwise we can't. And I mean, whenever I do get into these discussions with people, my first point that I always try to bring up with that is, have you ever considered how much money you would save by not going to work, whatever the job it is? If it's a 2-parent family, it's like, and both of you are working and you think you have to work, it's like, well, let's look at what both of you do, how much money you bring in, how much money do you have to lay out, whether it's for travel, clothes for work, eating, feeding yourself when you're away from home, like all these different factors that most people don't even think of. It's like, okay, forget about the, just cutting a salary off. Don't look at it from that perspective. Look at it from how much you would save by not doing all these other things. And when you start to do that, a lot of people will actually realize, oh, wait a minute. It wouldn't be as insane if one of us just stopped working, or one of us started working a heck of a lot less, or if one of us found some way to transition to part-time homework or whatever it is. Like, it's really not that bad. But it's that conditioning. Well, this is just the way things are, especially if your parents brought you up like that too. Like, well, you got to go to school because I went to school, and once you have your family, this is what you got to do. You got, you got to work. You guys got to support. You got to support your family, and if both of you got to work, well, whatever it is, like that's just how the generations and generations go by like that. Especially, like here in the good old USSA, that started in what, like the late 50s, early 60s. That started to change, where the women started working more and more and more, I guess, because you still have the images of the 1950s where most of the time, except for the war, when they were forced to go to work because all the men were getting themselves shot up all over the world. Other than that, there was just that was the image, because that's what it is. And then once that started to change, then that just became the new norm. And now most people who have, I refer to it as the goldfish mentality. Most people can't remember beyond like the last year, even, I mean, that's being conservative, with historical things that have happened. People are just like, oh yeah, that's the way it was. They believe the stories they're told. But they don't, like I said, they don't recognize that, yeah, this is the way it shifted for a while, because, well, I mean, we can get into it at some point, but government kind of screwed everything up even worse, where people had to work more. But when it comes down to it, if you're one holdup about taking your kids out of school and attempting to homeschool them, unschool them, whatever, is this, we just can't afford it, chances are I don't think you've looked at every aspect of that.
Yeah. Actually, that's a wonderful topic to bring up to people of income. Compare how far a single person income in the 1950s went and how far that goes today. And I think that's a wonderful illustration of the monetary system, the Federal Reserve, inflation, right? And why is it that a one-person income can support a family of 4 people, a house, maybe 2 cars? How is that possible? I was just talking to my wife just today because I was trying to watch Netflix with my son. My daughter was in ballet, and we couldn't, because my wife was using Netflix. Right? She says, no, not more than one user. You got to upgrade. And then I told my wife, and she's like, because I said, I think I remember a time when Netflix did allow you to use 2 people at the same time on the same account. And so she's like, yeah, every business is cutting back. And to me, that immediately reminded me of the idea of stealth inflation. Whereas most people understand inflation, so most common people understand inflation to be rising prices, right? But that's kind of half the story. Why are the prices rising? The prices are rising in response to the value of the currency falling, devaluation of the currency. So your currency is worth less, so therefore prices have to rise to accommodate for that. And so one way that producers can kind of shift around resources so that their prices do not rise, because people hate rising prices. If you're buying, your cereal at the same price, or you're buying your tissues or your toilet paper at some price, and then the exact same thing costs more the next time you go, you're going to be angry, right? So in order to avoid that anger and that loss of business, the producers just sell the same product with less. Like, a box of 120 tissues all of a sudden goes down to 100 tissues, and it's the same price, right? So it's stealth inflation. People don't necessarily recognize it as acutely as they would if the price went up, right? And so I think realizing that is like just to think about my lifetime and your lifetime. Like I remember going in the 90s, going to the store with my family. We were 4 of us. Yeah, probably my brother too. He was like little. So all 5 of us going to a grocery store, and I was amazed when the total came out to $100. That was like an amazing thing. And like how easily is it to spend $100 today at a grocery store?
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a wonderful illustration of the monetary system and the Federal Reserve and quantitative easing and printing of currency. And the Mandrake mechanism and all that, and that's a great way to get a little economics lesson into whoever you're talking to.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of it in those terms, but yeah, you're right. It is that. Well, I mean, I guess I did because I said I made the reference that we could talk about that. It's government's fault in a lot of ways. But if we're gonna stay focused on the schooling aspect, then we don't have to get into that now. But no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it definitely is. And and even teaching your kids, it's a great lesson. And it's funny, some people may hear that and think that we're talking about kids who are our kids' age, which is what, ranging between the ages of 7 and 5, I guess. With ours, whatchamacallit, they most people would think, oh, your kids that age aren't going to understand these things. It's like, well, my kids, I don't know. I mean, everybody likes to think their kids are smart, I think, except, some people are really honest if they have kids that aren't that bright, I guess. But most people on the whole like to brag about how smart their kids are. And, I've always thought my kids were smarter than most people gave credit for. And then even, Jen had to come around at one point and say, yeah, I think you're right about this. They definitely catch on. They haven't done a lot of like the, going back to the earlier conversation about, the typical school stuff that people expect to hear from you if you're explaining what your kids are up to type of thing, like where they are on all these levels. Like they probably could be farther in a lot of these things, but they both have one heck, because they're my children. They have one hell of a stubborn streak, both of them. And when they don't want to do things, and even if we're not pushing them, if they feel like they're being pushed, they shut down. Mm-hmm. So, but I can still talk to them about like these more complex ideas, like even something like, I don't think I've gotten this far yet, but like I probably could try to go through the whole Mandrake mechanism thing with them, because another thing I've done, like I said, I get a lot of flack from people for the way for some of the movies I allow my kids to see and for what I've exposed them to in certain areas, and also how I speak around them, and not only around them, but to them, because I have always spoken to them in the least dumbed down fashion I possibly could. Like I've always tried to speak to them basically how I would speak to anybody else. And once they started asking questions, like once they got to the point of being very verbal and, being able to communicate a lot better, if they got to a word that they'd never heard from me before, they never understood, they would actually ask me. So, great, another perfect learning experience where most people, like a word they would never think to teach their children, but it may come in handy later. It's like, well, no, I've taught them at a very early age because it came up literally came up in conversation. But because I've always spoken to them in that manner, their vocab, like while they might not be writing perfectly and doing all this stuff that some people may think the kids their age should be doing, their vocabulary is like the words they come out with is far beyond most people that I've come across their age. And what like I said, I can vaguely remember myself at that age, and I know I used a lot of big words, but again, I was kind of a freak who taught myself to read at 4 and was reading very advanced stuff by the age I was 6, by the time I was 6 years old. So I'm a different case, but I kind of remember everybody else. And it's like, yeah, they really they don't just use them, but they know them. And, another thing I get yelled at for is because, well, I have a dirty mouth too. And they've heard all that stuff, but also they may use that language, but they always use it in proper context. I don't think I can recall a case where one of my daughters has thrown like a sly like fucking out there without it being a perfectly placed, I guess, adjective. Is that what it is in that place? Or
Okay.
or adverb, whatever. Like, when they do say, of course, it mortifies like Jen's parents and my family.
Right.
But I'm like, and at first Jen was kind of bothered by it, but now she kind of like, like we have to keep looking at each other. It's like, well, number one, we can't get mad because, well, they heard us say it. So I'm not going to be that hypocrite that, that do as I say, not as I do. That was another thing, a couple of things I promised my kids when they were very, very little and could, probably not even really understand what I was saying to them at all as they were lying in the incubators in the NICU for the first month of their life was I would never lie to them. And I would try my hardest to never talk down to them or baby up my talk for them as a lot of other people in their lives were most likely going to do. And I've tried to stick with it since then. And I think it helps. Like like I said, they're exposed to, just like you were talking about before. Your kids are when you bring your kids up like this, they're exposed to so many things that people are just like they still think are taboo. And it's like, well, no, like maybe your kids are maybe you're not ready for this stuff, but your kids might surprise you. They might be a hell of a lot mature and a hell of a lot more capable than you are.
Well, I don't usually curse at all, unless I guess if I'm quoting a movie or something, if I'm imitating somebody. But my wife definitely does if she's pissed off and angry. So we know where they they get it from if my kids do, but they don't much. But yeah. So with my kids, in terms of not like telling them things as it is, like explain them, like just earlier this week, maybe just yesterday, I taught them the meaning of the word parasite. because
one of my favorite
I was driving
words
on the highway, and then the Waze told me that police officer up ahead, and we passed the guy, and I was just looking at this guy. He was, first of all, he was in an undercover black car, and he had his window down, and I saw him out. He had the what do you call it?
The radar gun.
The machine, the radar.
Yeah,
thing,
the radar gun.
The speedometer.
Radar gun.
Radar gun. Yeah. So he's pointing it at everybody, and I don't know. It just seems so parasitical. And so I was like, that's a parasite. My son's like, what's a parasite? Well, it's like a tick. You take care of your body. You feed yourself. You keep yourself strong and healthy. And then a tick comes along and just attaches itself and sucks your lifeblood and sucks your nourishment. They didn't do any work. They didn't earn it. They just take it. So that's what a parasite is. See, that's what a police officer does. He's not doing any work. See, everybody on the highway, everyone's doing work. They're going somewhere important. He's just
maybe not everybody's going somewhere important, but I get what you're saying.
Well, yeah, most people. But like is he doing something important? And the kids are like, no. He's just sitting there. He's just waiting to steal somebody's money with a ticket or harass peaceful people. And then my daughter's like, why do police officers like to harass peaceful people? I don't know. They just want to do that.
because, honey, it's their job. At least that's what they tell us.
I said, does that sound like a good job? No, that's a little bit mean. I know. It's very mean. So yeah, so I was very pleased with myself that I introduced a new word, and yeah.
Well, of course, that word holds special meaning for me.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. My kids know police officers as road pirates.
Well, I used to use that too,
which is
I say that interchangeably.
Oh yeah, I mean I've used the word parasite in that context around them before, but I don't think we've ever actually had that conversation. I think they just let that one go by. I don't think we've actually, I don't think they ever actually asked me the question outright, so I didn't, I just never actually answered it. But the road pirates thing, to me, I've talked about this before, but it's always the funniest for me because their grandfather, my would-be father-in-law, because Jen and I were never legally married, and we never will be legally married. It's just that's not our thing. We will whatchamacallit, my would-be father-in-law is a former New York City cop. So like the fact that that phrase has popped out of their mouth around him, like I know it's just like a knife in his heart every time, and I could not be prouder of my girls at that moment.
Wow. And what does he say when they say that?
I don't like. I've never actually. I just know it's come up. I've never actually pressed to see what's actually, because I don't really care. I mean, him and I never really liked each other. We tolerated each other for a decent amount of time. But pretty much once we announced that Jen was pregnant, like it was back to not really liking each other very much, because here I was, this guy that he was already iffy about, now knocking up his daughter and refusing to marry her, and making it known that part of it was in spite because him and others kept trying to pressure me to do so, and I was like, you guys can all kiss my ass. You're not going, you're not going to tell me how to run my life. And this was before I was an anarchist. Like this was part of my transition. Like I was starting to reject all authority again, and I was like, no, you're not forcing this on me. Screw you.
Right.
So I don't know I'm sure he just shakes his head, but I know it has to kill him, and like that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and talking about wonderful learning opportunities, Monopoly is also a game that's pretty cool in a lot of ways. Which, incidentally, my Soviet Union homeschooling mother hates. I recently learned this. Hates Monopoly.
Because it's a greedy capitalistic.
Exactly. It's all about money. It's all about buying stuff and acquiring houses and things, and you gotta get more money. She just hates every fiber of it, and it's kind of funny. But you know what's even funnier? Her kids love it.
Oh man, that's gotta be horrible for her.
A couple of weeks ago, her she and her husband have chosen not to buy that game, right? At all. They don't have it in the house at all. But she says if they go to someone else's house and they play the game, she's fine with that. She's not gonna rip them out.
Okay, well that's at least she's not. I know a lot of parents who would take it to that level, so that's good at least.
Right. So she's at least I guess tolerant of them doing things like that. And so they've gone to our friend's house. And they played Monopoly for the first time like a few weeks ago, and they love it. And then just like last week, they played it again, and they love it. Her kids are learning. The parents are from Kyrgyzstan, but they're teaching them Russian, so they know English and Russian. But they're learning. They're very smart kids, and they love the money thing. It's all about counting. Oh yeah, and my son, I've taught him what the income tax is. So he asked my son, "What's the income tax?" I asked him, "What's the income tax?" Like, that's when the government takes your money. Yes, it is.
See, exactly, that is brilliant. I've never. I love Monopoly. I started playing Monopoly at a very young age, but I had never. Like, I'm sure we have at least one version of it in the house. I know I used to have Dogopoly because somebody bought it for me when I was running my pet sitting business. They thought it would be cute. I don't think I've ever actually played it, but I never thought of that. But we are actually getting into money again right now because they had a bunch of different like toy cash registers laying around for the past couple of years now, but they were always like either one was like the Disney princess one, and another one was like some other cheesy one when they were like for like toddlers basically that comes with like a little shopping cart stuff, and they have money, but it's like these giant coins and all this stuff. So and as much as I hate fiat, we do want them to understand what they're going to be dealing with in their current life, So teaching them about the way the fake money that the government gives us works is probably a good thing. So we just recently purchased a better cash register, one that actually comes with bills that are more like the size of dollar bills and stuff, and actually have like Washington's picture on the 1 and Lincoln's picture on the 5 and stuff like that. And the coins are different sizes to represent, and even the pennies brown instead of silver like the other ones, all this stuff. But I never thought of Monopoly. That's actually brilliant. I'm gonna have to bring that, because they do like playing board games. Like there's certain games, like actually, even though like we have like the original versions of some of them, but of course they sometimes they prefer the ones that are like their different character versions. But like games like Trouble and Connect Four, like different weird games like that, my kids have always loved. And they do like board games because they love Candyland, they love we have a couple of different variations of Chutes and Ladders and stuff like that. So I should totally try that with them. That's great.
Yeah. Also, ever since last year, I think Thanksgiving time, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law came over. We were playing Uno, and What was the other? Oh, Cranium. Yeah, we were also playing. Have you played that game, Cranium?
Probably once. I think once or twice, maybe a long time ago, but I'm barely remembering it.
Yeah, excellent game, and I'm pretty sure my kids wanted to play. Yeah, they were playing, and they loved it. It's a really fun game. Yeah, very very educational. But yeah, also and the other thing I wanted to say is I draw a clear distinction with my son, especially because I was precious metal shopping with him when he was little, so he remembers taking him to the gold silver shop, and he loved it because they would like play with antique toys and cars, and which is really funny. And this one guy was so close, and I love my son. He would give him a car too every time he would come. So he loved going there. But yeah, my son understands there's a difference between currency and money. Money is gold and silver, and currency is paper. It's a currency. It's just paper. It's just they can just print. They just print the paper. Oh yeah. So yeah, he loves it. And sometimes my kids take out some of the silver coins and play with them. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's, money again because it's physical. The kids it's not just intellectual. When you make it hands on, I think that makes it comes alive for the kids, right? It makes it even more fun and interactive. And it's amazing how government school can take such wonderful topics such as money and business and economics and make it so dry and uninteresting. And it's so sad. It just destroys possible interests or passions that somebody might have in this subject if it was presented to them in a sparkling manner.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I have and will always probably argue that that's done on purpose. It's the one Rothbard quote about it being a dismal science and people being ignorant of it and whatnot. It's definitely presented to be this dismal science that only the nerdiest of nerds would have any interest in, and you don't really need it anyway. As long as you know what you can buy with the money that you have in your pocket, you'll be good. That's another, I mean, that we could get into a whole nother discussion about that, but I know you're probably gonna have to get going soon. So I don't want to keep you too long because we did get a late start with the technical difficulties we had early on. But yeah, I like I said, I believe that's done on purpose, as well as a bunch of other subjects that are purposely not taught. And just money in general is definitely a big, money, taxes, you having to pay taxes, all these different things really have been, they weren't taught that much to begin with, and they became less and less to the point, like, I mean, I remember back, I was in, school in the 80s and 90s, and I remember them already phasing out the different classes they had for stuff like that. And they were always electives anyway. And just like with things like philosophy, they were always couched as, oh, these are just like, the frou-frou sciences that if you really want to get into, or you're really nerdy, or you want to get into this stuff, you're fine, but nobody's going to take you seriously. So you might as well, or you're just going to be so bored out of your mind that nobody's going to want to talk to you. So you might as well not do it. That's kind of how it was presented. And now I don't think they have, in most schools, they don't even have those classes at all anymore. Like civics classes and stuff like that. Like they try to teach you as least amount as possible what you have to deal with. But again, that's why we were talking earlier about the whole thing we're talking about, the whole unschooling process, and having your the self-directed learning, where you have your kids learn about what they want to learn about, but not just any old thing they want to learn about. You can find ways to incorporate the real, what actually happens in the real world into what they want to know about. Like I mentioned earlier, with using the superheroes to be able to teach them their alphabet and finally get them understanding, all things like that. Or, the thing like teaching them math by doing stuff at the supermarket or whatever it is, all these different things. I think, I mean, it's often been said, I've been hearing it a lot lately, that, it's about 15,000 hours, give or take, that you have to spend in the government schools, basically, most people. And it actually only takes 200 hours, I think people are talking about, that it really only takes about that many hours to teach all the basics of things that kids want to know, that kids need to know to be able to expand on their own beyond that, like the reading and basic arithmetic and all that stuff. 200 hours or less. So, your kids don't have to get to it right away, but they'll figure it out a lot, as they go. And real world experience has definitely helped that. And you don't get a lot of those when they're spending a good portion of their day locked away in one building and then moved around like to other activities that are also connected to different things that are all in these buildings, and you're not getting all these real world experiences. So anyway.
Yeah, as with most government programs, it's government school is one giant broken window fallacy of lost and annihilated opportunities and possibilities of what the kids might have done and might have achieved if they weren't forced to be in an institution for 12 years, right? And it's very tragic when you reflect on that and you begin to understand, like, wow, what could I have done with my life if I wasn't forced to learn, such useless, irrelevant, ridiculous things? Who knows? And then when my parents, one of the arguments they used to say is, why are you so against government school? Look at you. You're successful. You're smart. You got, acupuncture degree, and you got a beautiful wife and 2 kids and a nice house and a condo. Why? What do you have to complain about? You should be happy you went to school. And my response is, well, where could I have been? What opportunities were lost? Maybe I could have done so much more with my life if I wasn't forced to do that. And, who knows? I don't know. That's the problem. The seen versus the unseen. And I also wanted to mention one thing about the money is one thing, to teach the kids about the currency versus money thing. But then the other thing is to, either give them like allowance or maybe pay them to do chores, or, even giving them money for Tooth Fairy is awesome because it teaches them that, money is finite. Right. And they can use the money for something. But if they do, then they have less money. So it's not infinite. It's not endless. Right. Which is what they think when, every time, the parents buy them something, they're like, oh, if you want something, just ask, mom and dad. But once they have their own money, they begin to understand, like, no, I actually have to think about what I'm going to buy because I'm going to have less money.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I almost got triggered when you said Tooth Fairy, but that's I think I actually mentioned that in that article or the essay that I wrote that I'll post in the show notes. That specifically, but yeah, you can use it as long as, because like I said, they know that Jen's the one who puts the money under there, but there's they still want to call it the Tooth Fairy, which is great. They still want to do that old make believe thing on their own. But they do get to understand, they get to learn about money, about that. Especially my one daughter it's funny, I don't want to get off too much of a tangent, but it is, the one thing I will say is it's funny with my 2 daughters, you were saying earlier, obviously, your kids are very different and, one's very analytical and one's very athletic. I have a situation with my twins. It's actually a lot of the same way. They would both be physical, I think, if it wasn't for Emma's limitations, certain limitations because of with her situation, but she's actually extremely analytical on top of that. So she's really dangerous. She could be really dangerous. She could be one of those things that could be great power for good or really, really dangerous. Kind of like me. I see a lot of her, she's not my mini me, but I see a lot of her on my, and Jen, other people have remarked that too. But just the, and now I kind of lost where I was going with that. Gosh darn it. See, this is what happens. What were we just talking about?
Tooth Fairy.
Oh, the Tooth Fairy thing, yeah. With the money, they like one of you when it comes to the money thing. One of them likes to conserve her money. She's kind of just like, I'd like something, but I don't have to. The other one's kind of like always trying to figure out how much she needs, like especially whenever she's obsessed with some new thing. Like she's trying to figure out how can I use, and we try to find ways to dissuade her from it without like telling her no, because we want her to learn, the consequences of your actions. But it's like I said, it's even parents who give their kids allowance, not all of them think that far ahead and they're just like giving them money, but they're not really, teaching this lesson along the way. But this is another one that I think most kids can grasp. And I think my kids and your kids are great examples of that they can grasp it. You just got to give them the opportunity. So
I'll say one thing about the Tooth Fairy. It's an awesome topic because, I was thinking about the incentives. What incentive does that give to the kids? Lose a tooth, get money. What incentives does that give? Knock out your teeth as quick as possible. So we had to refine the Tooth Fairy rule. Oh, by the way, our kids know that there's no Tooth Fairy either, and they know that Monica does it, but they still again play along. So it's like this woman, the Parenting Junkie I interviewed for my channel, she was saying, she put it very well when she said that they can understand that it's fantasy, and then it's not real, but they can still play the game and pretend it's real, which is fun, so they're playing along even though they know it's not real. And so it's not lying to them because they know it's you. And what's funny is after like my daughter lost her recent tooth, and then I forgot to put the money, like it was morning, and then I put the money really quick, but she checked it already and the tooth was still there. So I put the money really quick, and then she gave me the tooth, and then she asked me, because there's like a book that looks like a book, but it's like something where we put, stuff in, like their past teeth or, important documents. And she's like, "So Daddy, you got to put it in that."
Making sure you know where it goes.
It was so funny. Like, they know the in and out of it all, but yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to say that the, it's a fun game, and that's kind of how I look at the Tooth Fairy. I don't, same thing with Santa Claus. It's just a fun game. So yeah, it's so important. Talking about not lying to your kids, and that's definitely something that is very important to me as well. And my wife, I think, has a little bit of difficulty giving up the whole Santa Claus thing. She was hesitant to say, when they would ask questions, where does he come from? Where's Santa Claus? How does he get that here? She was hesitant to answer those kind of questions, but I kind of, ask them, do you think somebody, can fit down that chimney? What do you think?
Do you think somebody can really stop at every house
right
in one night? I mean, the logistics, they seem a little nutty. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Always turn the question to them, get them thinking. And the other thing about money is paying them to do chores or something. I mean, they can do regular stuff, but maybe paying them to do extra stuff. I think that's awesome. That gives them the idea of, I can actually work and earn money, and that gives them even more of an appreciation for money. And that's one thing that this woman, the parenting junkie, was talking about, how she is encouraging business skills and entrepreneurship, which is awesome. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just say that on both those points, the whole thing with the them still being able to have their fun with it and stuff like that when it comes to different the fairy tales that people talk about. Yeah, I touched on that on my article too, because most people would automatically assume that I'm just trying to strip them from my kids. It's like, no, they can still have it. And they can have even more fun with it, and
right.
I've watched my kids do that. So that is possible. And as far as money goes, yeah, absolutely. I think the encouraging entrepreneurship, because as you mentioned before, the whole, the what ifs about what any of us could have accomplished had we not been forced to be in this one place for this extended period of time of our lives, when we could have been free to do all these other different things and explored all these different avenues. Where would we have all ended up? I think it's an absolutely great thing to teach your kids that at a young age, because that's one of the things 5-10 years from now, I hope that my kids are already on their way to different entrepreneurship. And I mean, they talk about different ideas about what they want to do, but like any kid would. So they haven't taken a lot of it seriously yet. But I hope, that's because that's another reason I got into the whole unschooling thing originally, and the self-directed learning, because I see so many parents that are doing that and have their kids that are like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old already running successful businesses because they've been unleashed and allowed to focus on what makes them happy and makes them excited and makes them want to learn more. Yeah. And then they can focus that energy a lot more effectively than pretty much any other kid their age who's not given that opportunity. So,
yeah, if my son has money, he would spend it on remote control cars, helicopters, and drones. That's like his favorite thing. And so, he wants to buy the expensive ones, of course. Like, he wants to buy this like $100 or maybe $150 drone, a huge drone that you can put a camera on. But and when he says that he wants to buy things like that, I say, Marcus, what you can do, since you love video games so much, you can design a video game, maybe make an app, and then you can sell it and then make more money. So I'm trying to encourage that subtly, some like a little programming, which actually on Khan Academy they do have a free programming course. Oh, by the way, everything on Khan Academy is free, so that's awesome. But they have a programming course to teach kids basic programming skills, which is cool. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to getting to that as well. But yeah, encouraging entrepreneurship. Oh my God, so important. It's like endless skills that can be acquired through that. So
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we should get wrapping up. So, Danilo, first of all, thank you very much, man. This has been great. It's always great to talk to you, but this was, like I told you originally, this was the whole parenting thing. I don't think we've done on here in a while, maybe at all on the show. So, I definitely wanted to have one of these conversations, and it worked out that we could finally schedule this. So, before we get going, any closing words, and of course, plug away anything you want to plug before we close out the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. I really do enjoy talking about this topic, and I do. I think I do focus on it quite a bit on my channel as well. I've interviewed quite a few unschooling mothers primarily, some fathers also, some homeschooling fathers, and actually, it reminds me. I remember there was a Skylar Collins made that compilation of unschooling dads, right?
Yes.
Book, which is pretty cool. I thought that was a great idea. So, because there is a scarcity of unschooling dads, but we are out there, if you find us, and not all of us are socialists either. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, right.
I'm very, very happy to hear that. But yeah, so really appreciate you having me on. My website is peacefulanarchism.com, and you can find me on YouTube, Peaceful Anarchism, on Stitcher and iTunes, and I think other pod posting apps.
Yeah, we all show up in different places. People tell me all the time, like, "Oh, I hear you here." I'm like, I had no idea we got there. I don't know how. I don't know how that works, but okay, great. As long as you're listening.
Right. Yeah. So, Peaceful Anarchism. Check out the show and leave me a review if you like it. Contact me on Facebook, like my page, and give me some feedback, because I always love hearing feedback about my episodes. It really is very encouraging, and that's how I grow and improve. That's how we all grow and improve. We got to hear feedback, whether positive or negative. Although I don't really get that much negative feedback, which is great. A lot of other anarchists, perhaps, who communicate even more, harshly and brazen than I do get a lot more negative feedback.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
So yeah, I'm kind of lucky in that sense. I think I have some interesting, fascinating conversations with a wide variety of guests, rappers and authors, and people making documentaries, and other podcasters, other YouTubers, people who are cryptocurrency experts, and unschoolers and homeschoolers and agorists and all types of people, entrepreneurs. So yeah, try to have a wide variety of guests. Historians too. That's awesome too. So yeah, find my stuff and like it and share, and let me know what you think. So thanks a lot, Jeremy, for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Well, you're quite welcome, my friend. Like I said, it was a lot of fun for me, and yeah, I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. And if you haven't listened or read any of Danilo's stuff, then I would definitely encourage you to check it out, because even though I pick on him about the audio quality sometimes, the content is always good, and he definitely does have a very diverse list of guests that he talks, and ideas that he talks about too, through his writing and everything. So, and he is one of my favorite people to read as far as his writing style. I've told him that many a time. So yeah, go check that out. As for me, thank you everybody for listening. This has been Abolitionist Abstractions. All of my content can still be found at solpodcast.org, because I'm just too lazy to get my own separate website. I may get a separate RSS feed for this one of these days soon.
Okay.
Nothing will probably change until after I get relocated out of this hellhole and finally leave the DPRNY behind. But once that happens, I will try to take care of all that. But for now, solpodcast.org. And of course, if you are on Steemit, please go check me out there, because that's where I'm putting the majority of my content first these days. Steemit.com/@abolitionistj. So once again, thank you everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.
Love, peace, and voluntary interactions for all.
Bye.
This is Daryl W. Perry, host of Free Talk Live. This November, I'll be running in the world's biggest and most popular marathon, the New York City Marathon, and I've accepted a spot on Team Innocence Project because I'm a passionate supporter of their work. Since 1989, 353 people in the United States have been exonerated by DNA testing, including 38 who pled guilty to crimes they did not commit, and 20 of whom served time on death row. The Innocence Project provided direct representation or critical assistance in 180 of these cases. With your help, the Innocence Project can help even more people who have been wrongly convicted. As part of Team Innocence Project, I'm raising awareness about wrongful convictions and raising funds to help free the innocent. I've already paid the race registration fees. However, to secure my spot on Team Innocence Project in the New York City Marathon, I need to raise $3,500 by November 1st. You can support the Innocence Project and help me secure my race entry by going to run.freetalklive.com.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this content and would like to see more of it, please feel free to donate and help me interview other fascinating people. You can do so through Patreon. That's patreon.com/peaceful anarchism to help me out. $1 a show is all I ask. If you feel so inclined to donate more, please feel free. It will only assist me in spreading the message of freedom and voluntarism that much farther and that much more efficiently. You can also donate to my Bitcoin. My Bitcoin address is in the description to my videos as well as on my website, peacefulanarchism.com. And while you're on my site, there's a donate button to donate through PayPal. If you prefer to donate through PayPal, you can do so with that. But Patreon is a little bit easier for content creators, as you can set up a recurring donation if you so desire. Also, while you're on my website, peacefulanarchism.com, please feel free to sign up, enter your email address, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll receive updates every time I post something, a video or an interview. I do not send out any spam. Or you can also follow me on Facebook under facebook.com/peaceful anarchism or facebook.com/Danilo Cuellar 3, I believe. Danilo Cuellar 3. So either one of those methods, if you are able to donate, I would be most appreciative. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a magnificent day.